Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to part 3 of our 4-part series looking at the illustrious career of Ronnie Franchise, a.k.a. Ron Francis. As we now look at the years he spent as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2, do so now. The links are in the description. But to give a quick recap, Ron has now played 10 NHL seasons and established himself as an elite forward, despite his lack of recognition for league-wide awards. And, well, I guess playing in an era with Gretzky and Lemieux will do that to you. You even ask Steve Yzerman that. But anyway, he became an icon in Hartford, but the team, after false hope winning a division title, began a string of 4 straight first-round playoff exits due to rash management decisions, questionable coaching calls, and inconsistency from some star players. The Whalers looked like they were on track again after Ron had a career-high 101 points in a season, but head coach Rick Ley, whatever, didn't care for Ron's leadership, stripping him of his captaincy, and a new contract also couldn't be negotiated. This probably didn't help. And just like that, Ron had become part of the Pittsburgh Penguins in a big trade towards the trade deadline. The Pens just needed a few more ingredients to be a champion, and well, he was one of them. And as a result, was a huge part of the Pittsburgh Penguins winning their first Stanley Cup ever, Ron getting his first ever ring, winning one playoff series in 10 years during his time in Hartford. Ron suddenly a champion. But now the next test comes. As indeed 1991-92 will be his first full season in Pittsburgh, and as I mentioned in the last video, he has now gone from being the big fish in a small pond to still being a big fish in a much bigger body of water, I guess you could say, where the main shark, Mario Lemieux, was the best in the game and the #1 center. But Ron has thrived in his role so far in his short time in Pittsburgh, but what will the long haul hold for him? The fact is, the Pens are the defending champions. Mario is ready to ride the momentum and lead the way, and a lot of the big fish in the water are back. All-stars Kevin Stephen, Mark Recchi, Joe Mullen up front. Jaromir Jagr is about to enter his sophomore season. Veteran and future Hall of Famer Brian Trottier is back for his 17th NHL season, winning Cup number 5 in his career. Also, character role players Bob Erie, Troy Loney, Yuri Hrdina, and Paul Stanton have all come back. And on defense, they're as complete as can be. You have megastar Paul Coffey, another big star in Larry Murphy, and veteran Gordy Roberts. You have Ron's longtime hired goon, Ol Samuelson. And in net, all-star Tom Barrasso with reliable backups Frank Pietrangelo and Wendell Young. But the Pens did allow a lot of goals last season and need to improve on their penalty kill. But there's no shortage of goals on this team and a devastating power play on top of that. Once again, the international stage wasn't kind to Ron, overlooked for the 1991 Canada Cup, which teammates Coffey and Murphy took part in, a Team Canada win. Also, speaking of international plays, Scott Young, who had been Ron's teammate for 3 seasons dating back to Hartford, left the Pens to join the Canadian national team. And for the Canada Cup that year, Team USA was said to be run by Penguins head coach Badger Bob Johnson. However, in a shocking, tragic turn of events, Johnson suffered a brain aneurysm, and while he survived the attack, he was diagnosed with brain cancer, meaning he wouldn't be there at training camp. This left a huge void for the Pens, who loved and respected their coach. He taught them how to win and be champions. While he was undergoing treatment, however, he was doing everything he could to coach the team from his hospital bed. But they still needed someone to literally be behind the bench, and they had one of the best in the world already working for them. Scotty Bowman was already a Hall of Famer, as after beginning his head coaching career with the St. Louis Blues in his first 4 seasons of existence, and led into 3 Cup Finals appearances, he would actually go on to win 5 Stanley Cups in 8 seasons, coaching the infamous Montreal Canadiens dynasty of the 1970s. He moved on to Buffalo as coach and GM, where he also saw some success and drafted many great players, including Barrasso, but was unable to bring a championship to the city and was fired in late 1986. In 1987, he became a color analyst for Hockey Night in Canada on CBC up until 1990, where he took a job as director of player personnel with the Penguins for their Cup-winning season, giving him his 6th Stanley Cup ring in total. He coached the team by committee with assistants Barry Smith, Rick Kehoe, Rick Patterson, and Pierre Maguire. Yes, that Pierre Maguire. Still using Bob Johnson's strategy and guidance as he communicated with the team almost daily. The Pens had the 5th best odds to win the championship and repeat as champions that year among odds makers. But let's see how our hero fares his first full season in Pittsburgh. Well, Ron started the season actually injured, as a matter of fact, missing the first 9 games. He made his first appearance of the season on October 26 in a loss to a familiar foe, the Montreal Canadiens. The Pens were looking somewhat sluggish to start the season, clearly missing their coach. But they did rub salt to the wound of the Minnesota North Stars on Halloween in a Stanley Cup rematch, making them relive that 6th and final game nightmare from the Cup final with an 8-1 win. Hey, at least they got a goal this time. Where Ron was pointless, but actually played fantastic. It was a +3. After failing to score a point in his first 7 games of the season, he was picking things up, and the Pens were looking more like their championship selves, and Ron was looking more like himself, as he had 5 goals, 4 assists for 9 points in 12 games and was a +2. However, on November 26, 1991, tragedy struck further as Penguins coach Badger Bob Johnson lost his battle to brain cancer at the age of 60. The Penguins in the hockey world mourned a great loss, a man who was key in the growth of hockey in the United States and loved and respected by everyone where he coached, be it at the University of Wisconsin, where he got his nickname known as Badger, and of course the Calgary Flames, and any U.S. national team he coached, and of course, his beloved Penguins. On November 27, during a home game against the New Jersey Devils, the Penguins and their fans paid an emotional tribute to their guiding light. Ron, like the rest of his team, were very emotional, and Johnston, known for his phrase, "It's a great day for hockey," and that very phrase was immortalized on the ice surface of the igloo for the rest of the season, and a commemorative patch will be worn on their jersey. Ron did his coach proud. He was definitely watching from behind the bench in the sky, as Ron had 2 goals in a win over the Devils. In December, Ron had a good 12 points in 14 games, but it was a really bad -7. Even though the Penguins were actually looking pretty good still, and they were in 48 points, but were in 3rd place, just however 3 points behind the Caps and Rangers for first in the Patrick Division, each with 51 points. The Pens were struggling defensively in a big way, and Ron's defensive prowess was actually taking a hit. In January, things went to hell for the Penguins. They won 3 games all month. And Ron had a pretty good 9 points in 11 games, but Bowman, who was known for a more hard-nosed approach compared to that of Badger, saw him encounter a disconnect with the team, as he was now the official permanent head coach. In February, it wasn't getting any better, again just winning 3 games all month. Ron was average at best, 7 points in 13 games and a -3. He did have 2 goals in one of the wins, and that was against Toronto. The Penguins were now playing like champions. On February 19th, shocked the hockey world. The Penguins did, trading future Hall of Fame defenseman Paul Coffey to the LA Kings for a bag of pucks pretty much. However, they used said bag of pucks, along with Mark Recchi, and traded them to Philadelphia in a monster move, which was mainly for all-star power forward Rick Tocchet, feeling he has more depth and will come more in handy come playoff time. That's 4 straight 30-goal seasons under his belt. Pens fans hated these deals, more so to the fact that they traded for one of the worst enemies in Rick Tocchet. Well, obviously, they called for the heads of Patrick and Bowman, and some Pens players wanted Bowman gone. The Penguins had slipped all the way to 4th place with 61 points and were actually in danger of losing a playoff spot, as the 5th-place Islanders were only 3 points back of them, and even dead-last Flyers were still in the hunt. Ron also took a lot of criticism at this time, perhaps the worst of his career. Many feel that even as a second-line center with a team like this, he should still be racking up numbers like he did in Hartford. And even if he wasn't, his defensive game should be on point, and actually it's the worst it had been in years. In the final stretch of the season, Ron responded to the critics and looked a lot more like his old self with the best month of the season. 6 goals, 11 assists for 17 points in 17 games, and was a +2. The Penguins won 10 games in March. Ron looked fantastic, as he had 6 2-point games. And when he had 2 points in any given game in March, the Pens were 5-1. They had secured their playoff spot, and nothing can stop them now, except of course a players' strike which lasted 10 games, but play resumed and the Penguins finished 39-32-9. That's quite disappointing for 87 points. And while it was just a point less than last year, many of course expected more. Now with the division getting even stronger, it's only good enough for 3rd place, as the Devils did collapse late in the season. Ron will hopefully carry his momentum into the playoffs, and they were going to need it as they were taking on the Washington Capitals, who had a great year, as again they were much better than the Caps team the Pens faced the year prior with 98 points. Again, Dynamo Dino Ciccarelli was leading the way with another huge season, but the Caps' success and growth was also due to the likes of Michel Pavanko becoming one of the passers in the game. You had Dirty Dale Hunter having one of the best years of his career. Mike Ridley was still producing, and youngsters such as Dmitry Kristich and Peter Bondra broke out. And they also added Randy Burridge, who was making a difference, and Kelly Miller was still present as well. And hey, Ron's former longtime Hartford teammate Dave Tippett was fresh off an Olympic silver medal, Canada's first medal since 1960 no less, and had joined the team. The defense was even better than before, still led by Captain Rod Langway, as well as the awesome Kevin Hatcher, the always productive Kelly Johansson, sharpshooter Ali Afridi, veteran Mike Lawler, and another former teammate of Ron's, Sylvain Cote. In net, you had veteran Don Beaupre, who has had a Vezina Trophy caliber year, and backing him up, a man that Ron also knows very well, Mike Liut. The Caps were favored, but not heavily, with the experts taking notice of the Pens' improvement in the final stretch of the season. But here we go. Game 1, the Caps center and the Pens are without Mario. Beaupre is sensational in net. Our hero has 5 shots on goal, but neither of them get past the all-star goalie. Washington keeps Game 1 3-1. But the Pens lost the first game in every playoff series last year and won the Cup. Game 2, Mario is back in the lineup, but the Penguins are awful. They lose 6-2. Ronnie isn't among the worst offenders in this game, however, but he barely existed in it. So now Pittsburgh trails the series 2-0 as we head to the Igloo. Game 3, the fans believe the Penguins will do it for Badger, and the Penguins are much more focused and determined with the support of their home crowd. They trail 2-1 after the first, but then just under 2 minutes into the second period, on the power play, Ronnie controls it, Mario takes it, and here's Joey. The game is tied. The Pens took full control and led 4-2, but with under a minute to play in the period, Ron to Kevin to Mario. The Penguins lead 5-2, and the Caps nearly come back, but the Penguins win it 6-4 and are still alive. Our hero plays a beauty. Game 4, the Igloo is rocking, but the Pens are just completely embarrassed. They got throttled 7-2, and while Francis did assist on a Mario Lemieux goal, this was just a pathetic outing, and they now trail the series 3-1, and we're on the verge of elimination, heading back to the nation's capital. Further rumors of disconnect between the Penguins and Bowman were at an all-time high. Game 5, however, back in the nation's capital, it's do or die, and the mood is bleak, but our hero is playing like a tiger out there. The Penguins trail 2-1 in the second, but then took control and live another day and win 5-2 and force a Game 6. And indeed, Game 6 back in Pittsburgh, still facing elimination. 2 quick Kevin Stevens goals give the Pens an early 2-0 lead, but the Caps roared back and led 3-2 after 1 and extended it to 4-2, and hope was fading. But then that amazing duo, Ronnie and Joey, take matters into their hands, with the latter scoring a goal. A great setup from our hero. The Penguins are back within a goal, and it leads the Penguins coming back and leading 5-4 after 2. The Caps are pressing hard, but Barrasso is holding them in. The Penguins have a power play with 5:19 remaining. Stevens, check. Francis, check. Mario! The Penguins win it 6-4. We're going to Game 7. Can the Penguins complete this almost miracle huge comeback? But we are in the Cap Center for Game 7, and oh man, these fans are rabid. While killing a penalty, Larry Murphy clears the puck, and Ron gets it. He's going in on a goal. Hey, look, you got Mario with you. We'll pass it to him. Oh, he does. And they score a shorthanded goal and lead 1-0 after 1. The Caps, however, tied it quickly in the second, but on the power play, Ronnie controls it. Mario continues it, and Jaromir scores it. The Penguins lead 2-1 after 2. Ron's defensive game has been on par as well. He is playing the game of his life, and the Capitals can't get to Barrasso despite trying to press him, but the Pens defense is just unstoppable tonight. Time is ticking down. The net is empty. Ron takes the puck from the pressing Caps, gives it to Joey Mullen. Empty netter. 3-1 Penguins. They take the series in 7 games. What a comeback. Oh man, Ron Francis played the game of his life in Game 7, assisting on all 3 goals and killing the Caps up front, not fearing Dale Hunter, making life miserable for the likes of Ridley or Pavanka. 8 assists in 7 games. He clicked very well with Mario and that power play. His performance in the series-saving Game 3 and the deciding game were outstanding, as our hero and his team showed that they were tried and true champions in that big comeback. His +3 was actually a team best for the series. Despite the iffy Pens bringing it together, many felt their luck will run out in the Patrick Division final as they faced a team with the NHL's best record, the 105-point New York Rangers, who were expected to be the NHL's next unstoppable force, as many felt the Pens dynasty just probably wouldn't happen. Their fortunes took an interesting turn, the Rangers that is, when they acquired one of the best players in all of professional hockey, Mark Messier, who joined the team after 12 illustrious seasons and 5 Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers, and plus winning numerous individual accolades. And even this year, he would take home the Hart Trophy as league MVP. And they had the league's top defenseman that year, Norris Trophy winner superstar Brian Leetch. Also joining Messier up front, you had speedy all-star forward Mike Gartner, young stars Tony Amani, Adam Graves, Sergei Nemchinov, Darren Turcotte, and a young Doug Waite. Also you had depth forwards Paul Broughton, Jan Eriksson, and veteran all-star John Ogrodek. Joining Leetch, the always highly underrated James Patrick, seasoned vet Joe Sarella, Per Jus, Mark Hardy, and Jeff Boom Boom Bookaboom. And the best goaltending duo in the league, former Vezina winner, the Beezer, John Van Beesbrook, and young Mike Richter. And coaching them, arguably the most groundbreaking mind in professional hockey, behind the bench, Roger Nielsen. The Rangers, however, had just been taken to 7 games by a determined Devils squad. Game 1 at the famed Madison Square Garden, and the Rangers are not letting Barrasso breathe, but he's turning them back, and the Pens took a 2-0 lead after the first period. Then exactly 2 minutes into the second period on the power play, Mario Ronnie Kevin! He caps it off. The Pens lead 3-0, but the Rangers get 2 back, and the lead is cut to 3-2, but oh, what's this? Mario? Kevin, there he is. Ronnie Franchise scores his first goal of the playoffs, and the Penguins lead 4-2 after 2, and Barrasso bars the door, and that's how it stays. A huge Game 1 for our hero and the Pens. But in Game 2, disaster struck. Joe Mullen's season came to an end, suffering a devastating knee injury that would require surgery. This would be a huge blow to the Penguins. And yes, Adam Graves breaks Mario Lemieux's hand with a deliberate slash. He's out for the foreseeable future. On top of that, the Pens let a 2-1 lead slip and they lose the game 4-2. The series is tied. And nearly we're headed to Pittsburgh. Nobody's given the Penguins a chance. That is, of course, except their fans. Game 3 at the Igloo. The Pens faithful is rabid. As chance of 1940, the last time the Rangers won the Cup, as they had the longest active drought in the NHL, rang through the arena. They are also without Mark Messier, but it's bad early as the Pens are down 2-0 less than 5 minutes in. But Ronnie sets up Kevin and the Pens are back in it, but the Rangers restore their 2-goal lead to end the period. Francis is playing with all his heart, and early in the second period, Stanton and Yager set him up, and they're back to within a goal, but again the Rangers restore a 2-goal lead 4-2. But, and here they come, Kevin to Ronnie, it's a goal, and again they trail by a goal, but they finally tied on the Larry Murphy power play marker. It's 4-4 after 2. The teams exchange goals into the third period, and we're off to overtime, but it only takes a minute and a half for the Rangers to sink the Pens and take a 2-1 series lead. And our hero, Ron Francis, plays his heart out, and they'd still lose the game. Game 4, the Pens need to truly embrace the fact that Mullen is gone for the foreseeable future. Mario isn't come back anytime soon. They need to work together more than ever. As now Messier is back in the lineup for the Rangers, and again it looked bad. The Rangers led 3-1 in the second period as time was ticking down in the frame. Time for our hero to take command at last. On the power play, Paul Stanton is anchoring it, but he finds Kevin. Ron gets into position. Kevin finds him. He shoots and scores! With 6 seconds left in the second, the Igloo wakes up as the Pens trail by a goal. But the Rangers then take a 4-2 lead as Messier is just owning them and the crowd is dying again. But then it's Kevin to Herdina to Ronnie. His second goal of the game. The Hens are still in it. And 1:15 later, Troy Loney scores. We're tied 4-4. We're going to overtime. Oh my God. And just 2:47 on a power play. It happened. Ron is fighting for the puck behind the Rangers net and eventually gets it out to Stevens. As it's back to Murphy. He launched it. Ronnie redirects it. He scores. Wrap me up in cellophane. A playoff hat trick. The first for Ronnie franchise. And at a very important time. And he calls this the biggest game of his life in the years following. And those chants that filled the whale tank now fill the Igloo. Ronnie, Ronnie, Ronnie. And the series is tied to 2-2 and we head to the Big Apple. Game 5, just 1:15 in. Francis continues his momentum, assisting on a Rick Tocchet goal. And eventually the Pens lead 2-0 after 1. But the Rangers would tie up by the third, and Yager scores a huge game winner with 5:33 to play. Now the Pens are in control and have the Rangers against the wall suddenly. And then again, Game 6, no chance of 1940. Echo on even louder, and our hero is not going to let a Game 7 happen. After a scoreless first period on the power play, Ron goes to Phil to Tocchet. He scores, and the Pens lead 1-0. And they would lead 3-1 after 2. The clock is winding down, the net is empty. Francis finds Ricky. It's all over but the crying head. But hey, why don't we just rub salt in the wound? This one's for Mario, as Trache gets to Ronnie. 5-1. Penguins win it. 3-point night. His third such of the series. We're going back to the Wales Conference Finals. Ron Francis was simply phenomenal. 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points, 6 games, averaging 2 points a game, leading the series in scoring, and a monster +6. And again, he would call Game 4 one of the finest moments of his career. The greatest stretch of games he'd ever play in his career at this point. This was Ron Francis at the best he's ever been, bar none. During a year where he as a player was questioned more than ever, oddly enough. But more importantly, he stepped up when the chips were down, showing what a true leader is. Stick that your pipe and smoke it, Rick Ley. Oh yes, many were touting Ron as an early candidate for the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. However, awaiting them again in the conference finals was the Boston Bruins for the second straight year, who, like the Penguins, had some trials during the regular season, finishing with 84 points, and had to fight to a grueling 7 games to take the Sabres out in the first round, but then scored a shocking sweep and an upset over the Habs in the Adams Division final. However, they have been without Cam Neely most of the season, and I have to call out resident knuckle-dragger, Penguins defenseman Ol Samuelson, who injured him in last year's conference final, the reason for that. However, they acquired Adam Oates in a monster trade, and he's making all a major difference. Also, they have forwards Vladimir Ruzicka, Stephen Leach, Bob Carpenter and Andy Brickley. They all worked hard to try and bring things together, but the shocking difference makers in these playoffs were unheralded rookies Joe Juneau and Ted Donato. Also, checkers Dave Reed and veteran Dave Poulin are pulling their weight. Veteran defenseman Ray Bourque had another superb year, but he's been injured the last few games. Glenn Wesley, Gordon Murphy, and Don Sweeney have stepped up. While they also have all-star goaltender Andy Mogan net, they are now coached by Rick Bowness. After what has taken place in the last two series, the Pens are actually favored to take this one. Game 1 at the Igloo, the Bruins are still without Bourque, and the Pens need to capitalize. And after a back-and-forth regulation, we are 4-4, and Ron just looked exhausted out there, but he was still playing his heart out. However, in overtime, Jágr wins it for the Pens. And here we go, Game 2, more good news, however, for the Penguins. Mario is back, but wait, so is Ray Bourque for the Bruins, I should say, as well. With the game tied 1-1 in the first period, Ronnie to Jágr. The Pens lead 2-1, and they're on cruise control the rest of the way. A better game for our hero. The Pens take a 2-0 series lead. Game 3, Boston Garden. Kevin Stevens has a goal that made it 1-0, but ooh, a power play. Ooh, Tuckett has it, and now so does Ron, and ooh, Kevin scores again, his second of 4 goals on the day. The Penguins dominate 5-1. They're on the verge of sweeping the Bruins. Our hero is 1 win away from returning to the finals. Game 4, and while our hero has played well enough, he has been relatively quiet, but just under 5 minutes in, he gets it to Jágr, and the Pens would lead 2-0 after the first. Early in the second, Francis set up Stanton for a goal, and it's just owning Oates out there in this game defensively. Ronnie plays his best game of the series, and the Pens are just too good, and once again, Ronnie franchise and the Pittsburgh Penguins take the Wales Conference. They're going to the Stanley Cup Finals. Some believe Ron put so much in that series with the Rangers, going above and beyond even further than that in the Call of Duty. Someone exhausted himself, but he was still producing out there in a different way. That's the beauty of a team this good, however. They're all working together like they should with the talent they have, and everyone is stepping up in numerous ways. But either way, Ron Francis, who last year got a ring after the most tumultuous time in his career, is on the verge of another after the most insane stretch of his career. Awaiting them in the Stanley Cup Finals this year was a red-hot team in these playoffs, the Chicago Blackhawks, making their first finals appearance since 1973. 1 year after being the best team in the NHL and suffering one of the biggest upsets in playoff history, they had a slightly disappointing regular season with 87 points. Same as the Pens, but were clearly better than their record suggested. They trailed 2-1 in the opening round of the St. Louis Blues, and after losing Game 3, they haven't lost a game since. They set an NHL record with 11 straight playoff wins, beating the Blues in 6, shocking the division champion Red Wings in a sweep, and then sweeping the Oilers to get here. And this was one hell of a team talent-wise, led by the young man we'd all come to know and love and loathe in the future, Jeremy Roenick. Over 50 goals and 100 points. Also, Hawks legend Steve Larmer's looking for his first champion. As a superstar left winger, a former Nordique star Ron knows very well from his Whalers days, Michel Goulet. And this team had depth up the wazoo. One of the best defensive forwards in the game, team captain Dirk Graham. Another one of the best defensive forwards in the game, veteran Brent Sutter, bringing immense playoff experience with his 2 Stanley Cup rings. He was acquired that season from the Islanders. You add Stéphane Matteau, Jocelyn Lemieux, Brian Noonan, and Stu Grimson. You have a pretty good playoff strong team. But wait, what about the defense? Oh yeah, well, one of the best in the game. You got Chris Chelios. You also had championship experience with Steve Smith, and you had Brian Marchment and Igor Kravchuk. And in goal, one of the best in the game, Ed Belfour, in just his second full season. They were guided by the ever-controversial Mike Keenan behind the bench, whose methods made Scotty Bowman look like Ward Cleaver. Many believe the Hawks are unstoppable because of their streak, but experts are forgetting the Pens have also won 7 straight in their own right. So here we go, the 1992 Stanley Cup Finals. Game 1, the Igloo is ready for another cup to come home, and the Hawks stay hot and go 3-0 in the first period. However, Ronnie helps the Igloo get loud again as he takes control of another power play. He gets to Taki, who sets up Phil Bourque, and the Pens are on the board to end the first. The Hawks, however, took a 4-1 lead, but the Penguins fought to tie it, and it looked like we're headed to OT. But right off the draw on a power play with time winding down, Ronnie to Larry to Mario with 13 seconds left to play. The Penguins win it 5-4, taking the win out of the Hawks' unstoppable sails. The Penguins take Game 1, and Ron was amazing. Game 2, Ron does play well, as does the entire team defensively. Mario gets 2 goals, and they win it 3-1 to take a big 2-0 series lead. 9 playoff wins in a row. We are heading to the Windy City. Game 3, the loudness of Chicago Stadium, but the Pens, they're not intimidated whatsoever. And the Hawks haven't even won a cup since 1961. These fans are hungry after seeing their Bulls win a championship in this arena the year prior, on the verge of another one coming on a matter of days. They want the Stanley Cup to come back to the Windy City. But it's the Tom Barrasso show, as the Kevin Stevens gets the only goal of the game, and Balfour and Chicago's defense came to play, but their offense did not. The Pens win it 1-0. They're on the verge of a sweep in their second straight cup. Game 4, the Hawks fans haven't been silenced, shall we say, and the Pens knew it wasn't going to come easy. But they are now red hot, having won 10 straight, about to tie the Hawks record if they can complete this sweep. And what a roller coaster ride it was. Pen score, Hawks score, Pen score, Hawks score, Pen score, Hawks score. It's 3-3 after 1. Second period, Pen score, Hawks score, 4-4 after 2. In the third period, Larry Murphy gives the Pens a lead, and just over 3 minutes later, Pens folk hero Jim Pack gets it to Sean McEachran to Ron Francis. He shoots and scores. Roll me in sugar and call me candy. The Pens lead 6-4, but the Hawks aren't giving back. Easy for me to say, they aren't giving up. They get one back. Fight with all their might. The clock is ticking down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. For the second straight year, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Stanley Cup champions, tying the Hawks record, set those playoffs with 11 straight wins. But our hero, Francis Ronnie Boy, Ronnie franchise, once again, Stanley Cup champion, and the series winning goal on top of that, and assisting on the big game winning goal in Game 1. And yes, indeed, Rod played well in these finals with a great performance in Game 1, and again, the series winning goal in Game 4, but we had already seen his best hockey in these playoffs, and it got the Pens to this point and led them on a path to being champions once again. The only goal he had in the series, it was the series winner, and the 2 assists both in Game 1, but either way, his name is on a silver barrel for a second time, and his jewelry collection has now just gotten bigger. Ron had 8 goals and 19 assists for 27 points in these playoffs, third best, just a point behind teammate Kevin Stevens for second. And his 19 assists led the playoffs, while his +8 was 7th best. Ron was fantastic in the first round, part of that big comeback, but the series against the Rangers truly showed the heart, soul, passion, leadership, and the talent and will to win it all. But that some people questioned if Ron ever had. That series alone captured who he truly is as a player, better than any other. He may have quieted down statistically as they went forward, but he still played very well against Boston and had 3 points in these finals, and at key moments no less. As good as he was the year prior, Ron was on another level here. The regular season overall, however, was far from Ron's best. Despite a good final month, he had career lows across the board: 21 goals, 33 assists, 54 points in 70 games. He clicked pretty well with Mark Recchi before his trade, as Recchi actually assisted on a third of Ron's goals that year with 7. Speaking of 7, Ron contributed 7 assists with, Joe Mullen, who he was put together with a lot this year. After the chemistry they had in the playoffs last year. Ron assisted on goals for 13 different players, and he collaborated with 6 assists with all-star defenseman Larry Murphy. Ron also clicked well whenever he was shifted with Mario, as well as Rick Tocchet when he arrived at the club. For only the second time in his 11-season career, Ron Francis failed to average a point a game. He got hot in March and carried that momentum into the playoffs. Despite the loss of coach Bob Johnson and the team's tension with Bowman, they all worked together in the end to win it all. Ron was huge in the comeback against the Caps, but again, Lemieux and Mullen went out early in that series, against the Rangers that is, and it seemed over for the Penguins, but Captain Ron took steering of the ship, played the best hockey of his career, and got the Pens on the path to the Stanley Cup Finals in their record 11 straight wins, all the way with our hero scoring the series-winning goal. He was third best at scoring in these playoffs and led an assist. Ron was no longer just a champion by name. He was champion by heart. Because they overcame a team tragedy and inner turmoil and it resulted in back-to-back championships, the fans and experts believe the Penguins are going to be the NHL's next big dynasty and are ready for a three-peat. Ron's playoff performance was off the charts, and we established, and entering his 12th NHL season in 1992-93, Many wondered if he could continue that momentum and rack up the numbers he had in Hartford. Ron was actually the veteran in a team that was quite young. Even Lemieux was only just turning 27 as the season was set to get underway. Bowman was finally trusted as the team's leader behind the bench, and the Pens were going to be a force to be reckoned with. Our hero was eager to shine. Would he find regular season success in Pittsburgh? Also, the Pens, with their division rivals, the Rangers, were the top odds-on favorite to win it all when it came to the preseason final odds. And here we go. And Ron was sensational to begin the season. 2 goals, 14 assists, and 16 points, including 3 assist games in Hartford to continue to haunt his former team. And the Pens were hot to start the season, just losing 1 game in all of October. November, however, was not a very kind month to Ron. His 12 points in 15 games was decent, but he was an abysmal -10. But the Pens were still in good shape. They stayed the course in December, and Ron was playing more like the man he was in Hartford. But now he has a better team around him in that regard. He had 19 points in 13 games and was a +3, and included back-to-back games where he had 7 points. 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points against the sophomore San Jose Sharks club, and encountered red-hot rookie Teemu Selanne and the Winnipeg Jets in the very next game, had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. The Pens were looking great headed into the new year, but then something happened. Mario Lemieux, the man who not only was a sensational talent, but a man looked up at by his team as a tried and true leader, and beloved by fans in Pittsburgh and the hockey world over, and they were shocked to learn when he announced that he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. This no doubt cast a shadow for many different reasons for the Pens, but they had to surge on without him, and as hard as it would be, Ron, being a veteran leader in his own right, knew he had to do what he could to keep the Pens moving forward. Francis and the Pens did all they could, as our hero had 6 goals and 17 assists for 23 points in 23 games from Lemieux's absence into the end of February. The Penguins went 11-10-2 without Lemieux, and while they didn't fall apart completely, his absence was definitely felt, not just from what he could do on the ice, but the way he steered this team in terms of leadership. They were 39-19-6, and still had a comfortable first-place lead in the Patrick Division. And to the shock of many, after completing his last radiation treatment, Lemieux returned in a road game against the Flyers, and despite losing that game, as well as the following game against the Rangers, Mario looked as good as ever out there. It was clear he hadn't lost a step, and now this Penguins team was about to truly become unstoppable. This Penguins team made NHL history, and Ronnie Franchise was a major reason for that. An NHL record 17, count 'em, 17 straight wins for the Penguins. 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points in just 17 games, a monster +9, and an amazing game, a goal and 4 assists for 5 points against the Flyers on March 20th, and the very next day, 3 assists against the lowly Oilers club, 8 points in 2 games, and 2 goals and assists for 3 points against the pathetic expansion Senators team on March 30th, and then on April 4th, 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points against their division rivals, the New Jersey Devils, and on April 9th, notching 2 assists against the Rangers, Ronnie Franchise reached his 100th point of the season, the second time in his career, the first time as a Penguin he had reached this milestone, doing so in his last full year in Hartford in 1989-90, and he was just 1 point shy of his career high 101. A great season for this historic Penguins team. The winning streak came to an end on April 10th on the road against the Devils, but not in a loss. As a matter of fact, the Pens did trail 6-5 in the third, but a Joe Mullen goal with 1:06 to play tied it, and no goals in overtime again saved them from losing and preserved the tie. The Penguins finished a huge 56-21-7 in this now 84-game season for 119 points, their best season in franchise history, the best record in the NHL. The Pens dynasty was looking well on its way. So here we go, playoff time. And in the Patrick Division semifinal, winning them is the New Jersey Devils. And the Devils had improved since the last time the Penguins faced them 2 years prior, finishing 40-37-7 for 87 points. Their future looks even brighter as they now have all-star defenseman, one of the hardest hitting in the game, the great Scott Stevens, who is also now their captain. Up front, you have Ronnie's old foe, Claude Lemieux, as well as another former Habs, Stefan Richer. You had Sylvia's star, Alexander Semak, Valery Zalapukin, the great Peter Stastny, who Ron is very familiar with and has faced off against him many times, and longtime Devils mainstay John McClain. Also running out the forwards, Francis' former teammate Bobby Holik, former longtime Kings All-Star Bernie Nichols, and up-and-comer Bill Guerin. Joining Stevens is a superb defense, a rookie by the name of Scott Niedermayer, Bruce Driver, Ken Danico, and Soviet great Slava Fetisov, and the amazing goaltending duo of Chris Terreri and veteran Craig Billington. They were coached by American hockey icon, no less, Herb Brooks. Game 1, Penguin fever is at an all-time high in Pittsburgh, and Lemieux and Yager are having an epic game as they have a 3-1 lead in the second. Ronnie finds himself in the right spot as Mullen and the newly acquired veteran defenseman Mike Ramsey set him up for an easy goal. The Pens lead 4-1 and go on to win 6-3. Game 2, the Devils are iced. Late in the first period, it's Taglianetti giving the puck to Ronnie, who then finds McEachran. The Pens lead 2-0, and after taking a 3-0 lead in the second, Ronnie takes the puck from Ramsey and finds a Jaromir. 4-0 Pens, and on the power play, Murphy to Ronnie to Kevin. The franchise is on fire. The Pens are running away with the series, and they lead 6-0 in the third in this game, but to rub a little salt in the wound, Ron carries it out of the zone, and it's Ron to Joe Mullen. It's a goal. Pens win it 7-0. 4 assists for our hero. And the Penguins lead the series 2-0 as we head to the Garden State. Game 3 in New Jersey. The Devils are putting up a much more of a fight as Barrasso and Billington are amazing in net. And the Devils even lead 2-1 after 2. But the Pens roar back in the third and take a 3-2 lead. But then on a power play, it's Taga to Ronnie to Larry Murphy from the blue line. He shoots at home. The Pens lead 4-2. And it proves to be the game winner. A tight 4-3 win from Pittsburgh on the verge of a sweep. And they have now won 14 playoff games in a row dating back to last season. Game 4, Terreri made some incredible saves, and the Devils were too much to handle. The win streak comes to an end. The Pens lose 4-1, and the Devils try to stay alive. Game 5, however, we're back at the Igloo in the opening period on the power play. Ron, Kevin, magnificent Mario caps it off. It's 1-0, and it's 2-0 after one period, but in a shocking turn, the Devils took a 3-2 lead. But it's on the power play, it's Mario, it's Murphy, Ronnie, he shoots and scores. Wash my socks in a sink. The game is tied, and the Pens take command. They win 5-3 and take the series in 5 games. This is their 9th straight playoff series win in a row. Ronnie was outstanding. 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points. That was a +3 in just 5 games. His performance in Game 2 and his overall abilities to work against the Devils' defense was superb, as was his natural face-off abilities. And this Penguins team as a whole is red hot. They are on a runaway freight train of success. They looked just plain unstoppable. And awaiting them in the Patrick Division Final is the upstart New York Islanders, who had a similar 40-37-7 record as the Devils did in the first round. And just like, well, they had upset the Washington Capitals in the first round. The Isles achieved their first winning season since 1987-88 and did so, led by the phenomenal Pierre Turgeon, who scored nearly 60 goals, notching 132 points, but they would be without their star forward thanks to a dirty hit from mouth breather Dale Hunter. They now had to rely on the solid core of talent built around him, consistent goal scorer and clutcher Steve Thomas, the hardworking Derek King, as well as Benoit Hogue, and Ron's former teammate from the Whalers, Ray Ferraro, and then they were led by team captain Pat Flatley. Also role players such as Tom Fitzgerald, Brian Mullen, and Marty McInnes were giving them a lot of depth. A solid defense bolstered by U.A. Krupp, Jeff Norton, veteran Tom Curvers, and rookie star Vladimir Malakoff, and they had a pest by the name of Darius Kasparaitis. They had a solid goaltending duo of Glenn Healy and Mark Fitzpatrick, and coaching them was the man who guided their dynasty in the early 80s, the great Al Arbour. However, the Isles had no chance on paper without Turgeon. Game 1, the Igloo, Healy and Barrasso put on a show in net, and the Isles played a tight game and won 3-2 in a major shocker. Ron played so-so, but had very little impact on either end of the ice. Game 2, the Pens are looking much better as their defense shuts the Isles down. In the first period, Ronnie to Ramsey to Joey, 1-0 Penguins. The Pens are staying the course, and Barrasso is a wall. It's still 1-0 after 2. They're taking a 2-0 lead. Stevens sets up Francis, who scores, and they lead and go on to win it 3-0. And the series is tied heading to Long Island. And yes, Game 3, Nassau Coliseum, however, believes in miracles, but they weren't going to get any this night. In the first period, Ron scores a beauty. At 2:37 later, he and McEachran team to set up Yager. 2-0 Pens after 1, and the Pens are going to win 3-1 and take a 2-1 series lead as reality is now setting in for the Islanders. Game 4, the goaltenders are facing a lot of action and scoreless after 1, and the Isles lead 2-1 after 2. Then it went seesaw action in an action-packed third period of 3-1 Isles. Then it's tied 3-3. That's 4-3 Isles. 5-4 Isles. Then it's Kevin. It's Stanton. It's Ronnie franchise. The game is tied 5-5. But the Isles again shocked the Penguins, winning 6-5. And the series is tied 2-2. What the hell's happening? Game 5, back in Pittsburgh, and of course the fans are thinking it's just a fluke. And it looks that way as 2 goals in the first 54 seconds give the Penguins a 2-0 lead. And then 54 seconds after that, power play. Oh look, Captain Ron is steering the ship. His fellow boatman Tockett, he's in position. He gets it to Sailor Larry Murphy for the goal. 3-0 Penguins. And after the Isles get one back early in the second, 14 seconds later, power play chance. Larry, check. Ronnie, check. Mario, hey, it's a goal. 4-1 on the road to a 6-3 Penguins win. The Pens are now in the driver's seat, have a 3-2 series lead on the verge of another series win. Game 6 at the Island, our hero is shut down in a back-and-forth game. 1-1 tie, 2-1 Isles, 2-2 tie, 4-2 Isles, 4-4 tie, 6-4 Isles. And the Pens close it to 6-5 and lose 7-5. We're going to Game 7. How did the Isles pull this off without their best player? Well, that best player is actually back for Game 7 as Turgeon has hit the igloo, and our hero, who has played well for the most part, will need to step up his game. The tension is high for this 7th deciding game. Things go bad early. Kevin Stevens suffers a terrible, gruesome injury, landing face first on the ice in a very graphic scene. His night is over, and if the Pens can survive this, his season might be as well. The game was scoreless after 1 and tied 1-1 after 2. In the third period, the unthinkable was close to happening. Despite Turgeon getting very little ice time and doing not much of anything, the Isles took a 3-1 lead with 10 minutes to play. Our hero needs to do something now. Time is ticking down. The Penguins' dynasty is about to be derailed, but with 3:47 to play, Murphy begins to rush. Ronnie gets at the right spot, puts it home. Stop the presses. We're not licked yet. But they still trail 3-2, and Murphy again takes hold of the play and finds Ron again, who finds Tuckett. And with 1 minute to play, the game is tied. The igloo is rocking. The upset has been avoided. We're going to overtime. We are going to see Dave Volek score for the Islanders on a great setup from Ferraro. The Isles have just put off arguably the biggest upset in playoff history. Wow. A shocking end to a spectacular year for both Ronnie and his team. He played well in the series and actually was tied with Lemieux and Stevens for series scoring lead of 9 points. The Isles were fighters and ended up on the winning side. The Penguins may have just gotten a little too comfortable, but either way their season was done, no matter how you stretch it. The Islanders, however, would go on to lose the conference finals to eventual Stanley Cup champions, Montreal. Ron had a great 24 goals and a career-high 76 assists for 100 points this season, his second single-season century milestone, a fantastic season where he was clicking with all the big stars, including the big star himself, Mario Lemieux, in addition to assisting on 7 of Ron's 24 goals, and in total worked together to produce 29 goals. He was again put back together with Joe Mullen and Kevin Stevens. Mullen also assisted on 7 of Ron's goals, and in total they worked together to produce 30. He also assisted on 18 of Kevin Stevens' goals, as Kevin scored 55 that year, and together they worked together to produce 33 goals together. His top assist collaborator was Larry Murphy again this year, working together with 12. He also had some good chemistries at times, being shifted with Yager, Talkin, and Sean McEachran. Ron's 100 points was actually tied for 20th in the NHL. Yes, that was only good enough for 20th. It was a record year in the NHL where 21 players scored 100 points. As a matter of fact, his 100 points was only good enough for, get this, 4th best on his own team. Only the 5th and to date last time in NHL history that this happened, that 4 players on a single team had 100 points. Francis, for the 5th time in his career, was among the top 10 leaders in assists, finishing 9th at the career high 76, and this list features all but one being a Hall of Famer. Francis did get some recognition for his play, defensively that is, coming in 6th for Selke Trophy voting with 13 votes. At this point, it's just plain silly the fact that he's being overlooked during award season constantly. A great season for Ron Francis. He achieved 100 points for the 2nd time in his career. His 76 assists were a career high. He also finished a +6. He did what he could to hold the team together in Mario Lemieux's absence and kept them steady, but once his teammate returned, they helped the team together among their other star-studded players to record that record 17-game winning streak that still stands. Despite their hopes of a three-peat as champions coming to a sad end, this team in this season is still remembered very fondly by Penguins fans everywhere. Ron Francis is now entering season lucky number 13. The game was further changing. When Ron began his career, there were 21 teams in the league. They have now expanded to 26. The divisions were now realigned again, as the Pens were now part of the 7-team Northeast Division. Ron was now going to get reacquainted more often with some of his old Adams Division rivals. And now the Wales Conference was known as the Eastern Conference, and the Pens had made some huge changes. Coach Scotty Bowman was out due to a contract dispute. Coming in, however, was someone from our hero's past that he'd have to face again. That was Eddie Johnston, the man who was the general manager of the Hartford Whalers, who traded him to Pittsburgh. But Francis isn't one to hold grudges. After all, he's done very well for himself in Pittsburgh, and he simply wants to play hockey and make his team as good as they can be. Plus, his tension was more with Coach Rick Ley. The Pens, however, also gave up Sean McEachran, who Ron had pretty good chemistry with, and they gave him up for top defenseman Marty McSorley. Either way, the Pens were ready to shake off the disappointment of their playoff exit, and also the fact that they had to deal with most of the season they'd be without Mario Lemieux. Now is Ron's chance to guide his team to prominence in rough times, and he was also on the verge of a milestone. Before the 1993-94 season, only 37 players had reached 1,000 career points, including two of Ron's teammates, Mario Lemieux and Brian Trottier. Ron was one of 4 players approaching the milestone. Other players whose careers started around the same time were also approaching it, as well as Bernie Nichols, Brian Propp, and Dino Ciccarelli. In the first 10 games of the season, Ron had 12 points, putting him at .998. That included 3 assists against his longtime club, the Whalers. On October 28, 1993, the Penguins were hosting a team Ron had scored many of his career points against, the Quebec Nordiques. Down 1-0 in the first period on the power play, as he's known to do, Ron is anchoring an extra man advantage. He gets it to Mario, then to Kevin, and Kevin scores the goal. It's point number 999. And with the game tied 2-2 at 5:39 into the second period, Martin Straka gets the puck to Larry Murphy, who sees Ron. He puts it home past Jocelyn Thibault, and on October 28, 1993, almost 12 years after November 18, 1981, when he assisted on a Doug Sullivan goal for point number 1, he scores career point number 1,000, and the Igloo erupts into joy. Ron indeed becomes the 38th player in NHL history to achieve the mark, doing so in game number 893. Very impressive. He did it almost completely under the radar. Some were even shocked that he had that many points, and at age 30, Ron was still, prepped to offer a whole lot more in the future. The Penguins had a rough November, but were still in decent shape. Ron had 13 points in 13 games, including 2 3-point outings, and a goal to assist over expansion Anaheim, and the opposite over the Flyers. He then continued his consistent efforts in December as the Hens were looking sharp, and Ron was leading the way as Mario's injury problems and cancer treatments were taking a toll on him. The Penguins were finding ways to win, however. Ron had 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points in 12 games. That included an 11-game point streak in December and had 3 2-point outings. In the new year, Ron went on a rampage. In January, he had 7 goals and 12 assists for 19 points in just 12 games. On January 7th, he had 2 goals and an assist over Buffalo, getting the better of red-hot goalie Dominik Hasek, and then a goal and 2 assists for 3 points near the end of the month against a red-hot Toronto Maple Leafs squad. February was a rough month for Ron, but he still had a decent 12 points in 13 games. It was a -5. He did have a big 3-assist outing against the Jets. Ron had 15 points in 15 games in March, and the Hens were not as dominant as last season, but still looking good at the end of the year strong, and managed to finish 44, 27, and 13 for a very good 101 points. They finished first in the Northeast Division and second overall in the Eastern Conference, as the NHL has now adopted a new playoff format with seeds 1 through 8 placed overall taking up the spots, meaning that the second-seeded Hens would face the 7th-seeded team. And for the third time in 4 seasons, our hero and the Hens would encounter the Washington Capitals. The Caps finished 39, 35, and 10 for 88 points, but the Penguins were well aware of what happened the last time they faced a lesser team, of course being last year against the Islanders. Ciccarelli, however, was gone from the Capitals, as was star defender Al Frady. However, veteran Mike Ridley was working hard as ever, and they had a good core talent up front, such as Bondra, Pavanka, Kristich, Burridge, and yes, Dirty Dale Hunter was still there. They also had new star acquisition Joe Juneau from the Boston Bruins. Former Selke winner Dave Poulin had also joined them from there as well, and fan favorite tough guy Craig Berube was also rounding out the club. Their defense was still their strong point, bolstered by team captain Kevin Hatcher, as well as coach Daniel Johansson, and in net, veteran Don Beaupre was still their top guy. The team was now guided by Jim Schoenfeld behind the bench, but the Penguins are ready, and Mario is back for this series. Game 1, the Igloo. The first step to reclaiming the dynasty does not go as well as planned. Our hero plays somewhat poorly and takes 2 careless penalties, and the Pens drop Game 1 5-3. Game 2, the Pens play a tighter game despite Barrasso being bombarded, but early in the first period, power play! Hey look, it's Ronnie, who finds Larry, and it's Mario, who completes it. The Pens lead 1-0 and take a 2-0 lead after 1. The Caps do get one back in the second. Barrasso keeps them in it, and it stays the same. The Pens tie the series heading to the Capitol. Game 3 is Beaupre's chance to shine, however, as the Pens are shut out, however. 2-0, our hero gets 4 shots on goal, and doesn't play all that stellar in any way of the ice. The Caps take a 2-1 series lead. This is shocking. Game 4, it actually gets worse. Ron is having a really rough series and hasn't played this poorly in a playoff series in many years. The Hens lose 4-1, and just like that, are on the verge of elimination, heading back to Pittsburgh. Game 5, however, our hero plays like the warrior he is and really knuckles down at last, and he's a nightmare for Capitals forwards. It was tied 2-2 until the third when Jágr scored would be the game winner. The Pens are still alive and forced to Game 6, and we head back to Washington. And Game 6 is an absolute disaster. The Caps lead 3-0 by midway in the first period. Ron, however, does step up as he takes the feed from Murphy to stop Jágr scoring a goal. The Pens are on the board and get another, and they trail 3-2 after 1, but then it's 5-2 after 2, and they lose 6-3. Lose the series, and this game will be the final game for future Hall of Famer Brian Trottier after 18 seasons. Ron was not very good here, but that being said, he was actually far from the worst. Kevin Stevens and Joe Mullen were abysmal. Larry Murphy played probably his worst playoff series of his career. Our normally defensive-minded hero was contained by the defensive-minded Caps, thanks in large part to veteran Dave Poulin. Ron just had 2 assists. Ron was also a -2, and for the second straight year, the Pens are upset by a team that should not have beaten them. The Caps, however, would go on to lose in the next round to the eventual champion New York Rangers. This would be the first time since Ron left Hartford he'd see a first-round playoff exit. Ron Francis had 27 goals and 66 assists for 93 points in 82 games, another excellent season. And the big stars all did their part cohesively to move forward without Mario for all but 22 games, and Ron helped make that happen. He took Jaromir Jágr under his wing, well, literally, as Jágr was playing on the right with Ronnie, assisted on 16 of his goals, all but 11. Once again, Ron's clicking with all the men who are often his line mates, Stevens and seasoned veteran Joe Mullen, as Ron assisted on 16 of Joe Mullen goals, as Joey had 38 that season. He and Stevens also collaborated for 10 assists leading in that category, but he also had great chemistry with Larry Murphy as well as Tocchet, who himself had injury issues, missing over 30 games. And Mario, he had good chemistry with Mario when he was healthy. For the 6th time in his career, our hero finishes among the top 10 assist leaders, tied for 9th with Joe Juneau with 66. Once again, Ron finished 6th in Selke Trophy voting and obtained 17 votes, 4 more than he received last season. Ron stepped up, and the team as a whole responded to all-star veterans like he, Murphy, and Mullen, as well as superstar Kevin Stevens and others to get this team to another 100-point season. And he was rewarded in a huge way. Much like he did in Hartford, he obtained some significant team awards. He was named Team MVP. He was also voted MVP by his teammates, winning the Penguins Players Player Award. And yes, the Penguins have a booster club too, and they vote for the 3 stars of the game. And guess what? Ron racked up the most points, pretty much combined with 2 different awards he won in Hartford, and of course achieved his 1,000th career point, and this year was a test for the Pens, and now Ron's task was about to become even more daunting. Many obstacles faced our hero in the upcoming 1994-95 season. First and foremost, a lockout that pretty much erased the entire 1994 portion of the season. Once things were settled, a 48-game season would commence in mid-January. But changes were still coming in Pittsburgh after their playoff disaster from last season. Indeed, during that season, they had acquired Kings star forward Thomas Sandström. They also parted ways with Rick Tocchet, trading him for another Kings superstar, all-star Luc Robitaille. And Tom Barrasso is also going to miss the majority of the season due to wrist surgery. And to top it off, Mario Lemieux was going to miss the entire season, undergoing further treatments for Hodgkin's lymphoma. So not only did Ron have even more responsibility with the Pens' biggest star gone indefinitely, but he was bestowed a title that he was familiar with, but just not in Pittsburgh. In Lemieux's absence, he was named team captain. For the first time since 1990, Ron Francis wearing the C on his jersey. But it was more than just a fashion statement. He knew what it really meant, and now he needed to step it up even further. Well, Ron began the year on a tear. A 13-game point streak from the first 5 games in January into February. 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points in those 13 games, and a monster plus 14. And to top it off, this was all part of a 13-game unbeaten streak. He had 3 assists in the only game they didn't win in February 5th against the Devils in a tie. On February 9th against the Islanders, he had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. And on February 16th against his former team, once again the Whalers, he had 3 assists. And Ron's defensive game was in peak form. He was unstoppable at every end of the ice, and Pittsburgh fans had taken notice. The point streak came to an end the same time as their unbeaten streak did at the end of the month. And it was about hit or miss after that. In March, Ron continued to take his role as team leader very seriously and keep the Penguins going on the right track. 16 points in 14 games, including a 3-assist outing against the Habs on March 13th, and had 4 other 2-point games. He was dominating the face-off circle, schooling the likes of Young Flyers megastar Eric Lindros, Nordique's all-star Joe Sakic, and Sabre sensation Pat LaFontaine. And in the final stretch of the season, Francis 19 points in 15 games that included 7 2-point games, a goal and an assist against the Flyers on April 1st, 2 assists on April 11th against the Caps, 2 goals on April 18th against the Rangers, 2 assists against the Devils on April 26th, which began a stretch of 4 straight games with 2 assists, with a home-and-home against Boston and another game against the Capitals. And Ron reached another career milestone on April 16, 1995. In Philadelphia, Ron Francis played his 1,000th career game. He notched an assist, and despite the heated rivalry between the two teams, he was given a standing ovation from Flyers fans in attendance for reaching this mark. Ron has only missed 71 games in 14 seasons, not even totaling a full season. The Penguins finished 29-16-3 for 61 points in the shortened season, second in the Northeast Division, 4 points behind Quebec, and finished third overall in the Eastern Conference as our hero was ready to take the ship into the playoffs. And boy, standing in their way for the second straight year and the fourth time in 5 seasons, I should say, the Washington Capitals, who finished the year 22-18-8 for 52 points and were the 6th-seeded team in the East. The disappointing first-round exit from the year prior was still fresh in the minds of the Pens and their fans, and now they had to face it all over again. The Caps got off to a terrible start, lost longtime veteran Mike Ridley to Toronto, but the team is still intact otherwise, and most of the elements that helped this team upset the Pens last year are still intact. However, a bit of a change in goaltending, with new starter Jim Carey in net. Alrighty then. And their backup, only the goalie Kolzig. Will the Pens fall again? Well, Game 1, the Igloo is ready, and so are the Penguins. Or so it seemed. The Pens had let a 3-1 lead slip, and it was tied 3-3 at the end of 2 periods. The Caps silenced the Igloo to the point of a pin dropping, taking a 5-3 lead just really over 2 minutes into the third. Our hero was doing all he could with 5:18 to play. Ron takes it, gets it to Kevin, who sets up Jaromir. It's a goal, but the Pens couldn't get back in it. They dropped Game 1 5-4. Not good. Game 2, however, they're a little more ready, and our hero needs to take full command and does just that. Only 3:35 into the game on a power play. It's Jaromir who gets it to Ron. He sees his guy. Oh, that'd be Larry Murphy. It's a goal. Then the Pens let it slip. It's 3-1 Caps after 1. Come on, Ron, do something. Oh, it's still 3-1 after 2. Come on, we need that guy who played against the Rangers 3 years ago. The Igloo is restless as the Pens are now 20 minutes away from going down 2-0, heading to Washington. But just over a minute into the third, Larry Murphy takes hold of the situation as he gets the puck to Ron, who sees Luke Robitaille open. It's a goal! The Igloo wakes up. The Pens now only trail by 1. Lots of time left to play. But oh, look. Ron wastes no time. 29 seconds later, Francis to Yager. It's a goal. The game is tied. Oh, wow. The Igloo is shaking to its very icy core. The Caps start getting frustrated, and Kevin Stevens makes them pay on a power play, and the Pens take the lead. And with 41 seconds left to play, Ron clears the puck out of the zone. Mullins sees Luke. It's a goal. An empty netter. 4 assists for our hero in this game. He stepped it up and took command like we asked, and now the series is tied, and we are headed to the Capitol. Game 3, the Caps center is rocking though, and the Pens play terribly. So much so, Tom Barrasso, who is now in a backup role, thanks to how well Ken Reagan has been playing all year, had to come into the game despite his lingering issues from his wrist still bugging him. Ron does get his first goal of the playoffs in a 6-2 loss. The Caps take a 2-1 series lead. Not good! Game 4, the Penguins look more cohesive, but the Caps defense has given them a real time. Trailing 2-1, however, in the first, that amazing talented line of the 3 legends, Ronnie to Luke to Jaromir. He scores. It's 2-2 after 1. And the Pens fall apart completely and lose again 6-2 on the verge of elimination. Barrasso's season is officially done to boot. And yep, here we go. Once again, Game 5, the Igloo does not seem as lively tonight, and why should they? The team has taken heavy media scrutiny, as is our hero. One reporter dared say he wishes he could lead like Mario. Well, whether or not Ron heard this is unknown, but he's not going to roll over and die. And oh, look, the Capitals lead 2-0 in the first, and now killing a penalty. And Ron is a great penalty killer, as he has been all year. He can work as well. Jell Samuelson fights to get the puck out of the zone. Ron takes it. He sends it to Yager all alone. Hey, the Pens are on the board. And hey, there's actually fans in the Igloo. You wouldn't know about the lack of sound in this game. Anyway, the Pens trail 2-1 after 1, but a power play in the second period sees the 2 men who control the extra man advantage. Lawrence to Ronald. He set up Kevin. He scores. It's tied 2-2, but the Caps retake their lead. But as the period winds down, it's in reverse order this time at full strength. This time to Kevin and Lawrence setting up Ronald. He shoots. Johnston scores. Light my candles on the blowtorch. It's 3-3 after 2. The Caps then took a 4-3 lead as the Pens season is hanging in the balance. But just over a minute later, Francis makes a beautiful setup to Yager. We're tied again. But 26 seconds later, the Caps take the lead again. Oh my goodness. But then with 8:18 to go, Yager? Yep. Francis? Yep. Stevens? Yep. A goal. The game is tied 4-4. Time winds down, we're off to overtime. And 4:30 in, Luke seals the deal. The Penguins are still alive. Ron answers the critics, but he didn't do it for them. He did this for his team. A goal and 4 assists, 5 points. This is the Ron Francis that played against the Rangers 3 years ago. What a night. Showing leadership by example. But they stayed alive last year too, however, in this situation, but this time it took even more effort. Game 6 in Washington, Caps fans are feeling deja vu. Despite the Game 5 loss, they know they still have the Pens against the wall, but the Pens humiliate the Capitals 7-1 on the back of a 4-point night from Robitaille, and we are going to Game 7. Could this be deja vu from 1992, maybe? The Igloo is feeling it, and when the Pens came back from a 3-1 deficit against the Caps back then, they went all the way and won it all. Game 7 is indeed underway, and Reggett is incredible in net, and the Pens take a 1-0 lead early on. And later in the first period, that amazing Penguins power play, Yager takes control. He keeps it, sees our pal Kevin, and hey, our good friend Ron is in position to park it home. 2-0 after 1. And Reggett bars the door, and time is ticking down in the third period. Oh boy, it is shaking up in the Igloo. The Pens have it wrapped up, but that doesn't stop our pal Ron from clearing the puck up, setting up seasoned veteran Troy Murray for an empty netter with 4 seconds left. 3-0. Penguins win, and they take this series in 7 games in a monster comeback. Oh my goodness, like I said, Ron's performance in this series ranks right up there with his performance against the Rangers 3 years prior. 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points in 7 games, averaging 2 points a game. Hey, you media experts wanted him to be like Mario? Well, in terms of statistics, you even got it now. Haha. His performances in Games 2 and the crucial Game 5 that turned the series around showed the man once again comes up in the clutch for his team. He played incredible in Game 7 as well. He was leading all scorers in the playoffs heading into the next round. And in the next round, for them was their former division rivals, the New Jersey Devils. The Devils had the same record as the Pens' previous opponent, the Capitals, 22-18-8, and they had just defeated the Boston Bruins pretty easily in 5 games. The Devils team has made some key changes since the last time the Pens faced them in '93. 2 big moves, in fact. One of them is that coach, Jacques Lemaire, who'd won 8 Stanley Cups as a player in Montreal and is a Hall of Famer, has implemented a system that would be a game changer in hockey, whether we liked it or not. The neutral zone trap. Behold the birth of the dead puck era. Thanks a lot, Jacques. Anyway, their other big changes were in net, as they now had a sophomore sensation, Martin Brodeur. And also, to top it off, they added Ron's 1981 draft alum, Bob Carpenter, and veteran all-star, Neil Broughton. Game 1, the Igloo believes the Penguins can go all the way. The Devils have a lead 1-0 after 1 as Brodeur and the defensive system that they have are making our hero work for it. However, the defensive pairing of Murphy and McIver set up running, and the game is tied 1-1 after 2. And let's see, power play. Okay, Larry. Oh, hey, there he is. Ron. Oh, of course, there he is. And hey, he sees Yager, and he gets a goal. It's 2-1. Even though the Devils tied it, Luke scores the game winner with 1:16 to play. The Pens strike first blood and take Game 1. Game 2, the Devils struck first again, but oh, it's the lovely trio of Murphy, Francis, and Yager making it all happen with the mulleted Marvel getting the goal. It's tied 1-1 after 1. It stays that way after 2 periods and tied 2-2 with time winding down in the third. However, the Pens fall apart. Just 29 seconds to play, they suddenly lose 4-2. Oh boy, the series is tied at 1 as we shift to the Garden State. Hey, nobody's panicking yet though. Game 3 in East Rutherford, the Pens trail Tower 2-0 in the first, but our hero gets the boys on the board, but the Pens are absolutely humiliated 5-1. Veterans Broughton and Carpenter are making Francis' life difficult as they take a 2-1 series lead. Game 4, Reggett and Brodeur are putting on a clinic, and it's scoreless after 2. But the Devils took a 1-0 lead in the third, but it's Kevin to Jaromir to Ronnie Franchise. He scores, it's tied 1-1, we're off to overtime. The goalies are pushing back against all those shooters. With 1:24 left to play in overtime, Broughton sticks the dagger, and the Pens are now facing elimination again. Game 5, however, the fans still believe, and hey, our hero starts finally playing the defensive game that he's been playing all year. Reggett has some breathing room, and the Pens seem to have solved the Devils' system as Brodeur is facing a barrage of shots. Great news! Bad news is Brodeur stops all but 1. The Devils score 3 on Reggett plus an empty netter. The Pens lose the game and the series 4-1. For the third straight season, the Pens lose to a team they had more points than in the regular season, but in this case, to be fair, the Devils were actually much better than their record suggested as they went on to win their first Stanley Cup in team history. Ron was shut down here. Yes, he had 5 points, as you can see, but otherwise, the Devils' trap system did not allow him to continue his role that happened in the opening round. His -4 was also tied for worst on the team in this series. Well, despite this, Ron was actually 4th in playoff scoring, with his 19 points, 6 goals, and 13 assists. Despite another playoff exit, he showed he can lead this team. He showed it all year. Ron Francis had 11 goals, 48 assists for 59 points in just 44 games in a 48-game season. And look at this! 41 of 59 of Ron's points involved Jaromir Jagr in some way. Jagr had 70 points that season, and Ron being a major part of it, as Jaromir won the scoring title. Ron really took his role as the team's top center seriously. Ron, of course, had great chemistry with their line mate Luc Robitaille. If only Ron still had his mullet. How glorious would that hair would have been on that line. But anyway, he also had great chemistry with Larry Murphy again. What an incredible year for these stars. Once again, for the 3rd straight year, the 7th time in his career, was in the top 10 in assists, but this time, for the very first time, led the league. His 48 assists in 44 games indeed was tops. Finally, arguably the best setup man in the game, one of the league's finest passers, is truly the best in a single season. This also means for the very first time in his career, Ron Francis, despite having 2 100-point seasons in the past, despite having seasons in the 90-point range and above as well, is among the top 10 point leaders in the NHL, as his 59 points was the 5th best in the entire league. And here's something different. Ron Francis was the NHL's plus-minus leader, a stat that he wasn't exactly always kind to him, mainly due to his years with lackluster Whalers teams, but his plus 30 was the best in the NHL. What a year! Well, tell me he gets some recognition during awards season. Yes! At long last, Ron Francis has won the Frank Selke Award for the league's top defensive forward. After years of winning many individual team awards, he has finally been recognized for his defensive skills on the ice, barely edging out veteran Esa Tikkanen of the Blues, and another finalist being Flames veteran Joel Otto, both of whom have been consistently involved in voting for many seasons. After coming in 6th in the last 2 seasons, it finally happens at... Wait, what? He won the Lady Byng Trophy too? Wow, again, Ron has received votes just twice in his career, one being his sophomore season in 82-83 and his big season in Hartford in 89-90. He's won it this time, beating Adam Oates and Alexei Zhamnov. So in addition to being the league's top defensive forward, he's also the man who best exemplifies excellence on the ice and sportsmanship. What a win. Now, okay, he has to have gotten some significant votes for the Hart Trophy as league MVP, right? Right? What? He didn't get a single vote? Not one damn vote? The guy wins the Selke, the Byng, leads the league in assists, as well as plus-minus. He's 5th in points, took hold of this team that had lost their heart and soul for the entire year, and still made them a contender, and he didn't get a damn vote! Well, despite the great year, he continues to get overlooked in many ways. He also came close to, as he ever has been, to being a team all-star. He was actually 3rd in team all-star voting for centers, but yet he doesn't get a Hart Trophy vote. Well, despite this, I probably care more than Ron does. Ron Francis had a glorious season, the most celebrated season of his career. He finally gets recognized for his individual accomplishments in the league, winning both the Selke Award as the league's top defensive forward, the Lady Byng, one for excellence in sportsmanship as the gentleman he is, combined with his skill on the ice, was truly recognized. He finished in the top 10 in scoring for the first time, led the league in assists for the first time, led the league in plus-minus for the first time with a career-high plus 30. And, hey, he won many team awards again. He was again voted MVP by the players. Also won the Edward DiBartolo Community Service Award. And much like he did in Hartford, he endeared himself to fans in the community of Pittsburgh. He is also awarded the Badger Bob Award, named after their late coach Bob Johnson, for his dedication to the game and to his teammates and showing the best example of how it's a great day for hockey. He was named team captain, played in his 1,000th career game, and most of all, took on his role as team captain and team leader, and became the top center and thrived under pressure that he was facing. Can it get any better? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Ron Francis was now about to enter his 15th NHL season. At 32 years old, he was in the best shape of his career going into the 1995-96 year, and he was also playing his best hockey. But of course, yeah, you got your naysayers. So they say with a strike-shortened season, Ron's accomplishment need an asterisk next to it. Well, the Pens team also saw more changes coming. The Pens had a good coach in Eddie Johnston and an excellent GM in Craig Patrick, but ownership was questionable to say the least. Now with the game changing, the Pens had to drop some of their big money players. The first to go was Larry Murphy, the superstar defenseman who anchored their power play, who Ron had great chemistry with, and in general was just amazing on the extra man advantage, and was traded to Toronto for Dmitry Mironov. But anyway, also Luc Robitaille was costing the team a lot of money, and despite how well he played in the playoffs, he wasn't seen as someone who fit in long term. And just after 1 year, he was traded to the Rangers, along with Ulf Samuelsson, who had been Ron's teammate in Hartford since 1984. Wow, yikes. In exchange for Peter Nedved and a great grab in defenseman Sergei Zubov. They also grabbed the reliable, hard-working forward Glenn Murray from the Bruins, who they sacrificed Kevin Stevens for. Despite the changes, some good, some questionable, the Pens were still deemed a contender because, in addition to our hero being at his best and Jágr continuing to evolve, Mario is back! And Ron continued where he left off last season, staying hot. 5 goals, 10 assists for 15 points in just 8 games in October. That's nearly 2 points a game. In the opening game of the season, Ron had 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points against the Leafs. In the very next game, the Pens tied the Colorado Avalanche, who you might know formerly as the Quebec Nordiques, and Francis had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. 7 points in the first 2 games, and then 3 assists against the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim later on October the 20th. And wow, he just keeps rolling. As to the Penguins as a whole, 7 goals, 19 assists, 26 points in 14 games. Ron's among the league leaders in scoring again this year early on, and was an incredible plus 11. It began the month with 2 goals and 3 assists for a monster 5-point head against the rising Tampa Bay Lightning squad. 1 week later, he had a goal and 3 assists for 4 points against the Senators. And get this, the very next game, November 19th against the Sharks, a hat trick! 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. That's 9 points in 2 games, and the 10th regular season hat trick of his career. His first as a Penguin, his last was on February 13, 1991. Still a member of the Whalers. That boy couldn't get any better. How about the fact that he just had 1 less assist in 14 games as the Pens were dominating the opposition. 4 assists on December 9th, and Ron's success against his former team continued. On December 17th, he had 2 goals and assists against the Flyers. The very next game, 2 days later, 3 assists against the Flames. 6 points in 2 games, holy moly. And he'd have another 6 points in 2 games with back-to-back 1 goal and 2 assist games against Buffalo and, yep, Hartford. Despite missing 2 games, the Pens having some troubles, Ron stayed hot. 3 goals, 14 assists for 17 points in 12 games. 3 assists each in back-to-back games against the Habs and Sharks. 6 assists in 2 games. He is just truly remarkable. Also, a goal and 2 assists for 3 points on January 22nd against Boston. However, Ron was actually in Boston, 2 days before that for another reason. For the first time since 1990, Ron Francis was selected to play in the NHL All-Star Game, which indeed took place in Boston. He joined 2 men also having a sensational season, his teammates Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jágr. For Jágr, it was his 4th straight selection. For Lemieux, it was his 8th selection. And 7th appearance, actually, because for our hero, his 5th selection and 4th appearance in the big game. It took place on January the 20th. And a big moment for our hero and his teammates. Early in the second period, Ron does what he does. Controls the ongoing rush. He found Mario, who set up Jaromir for a goal. All 3 teammates in on the goal, en route to a 5-4 Eastern Conference win. February, however, wasn't what you'd call a great month for Ron. His numbers were still okay, a goal and 8 assists for 9 points in 10 games, which included a 3-point night against Chicago, and the Pens were kind of having a bit of trouble getting a hot streak going. But on February 24th, in the game against the Montreal Canadiens, Ron Francis was trying to check Montreal defenseman Vladimir Malakov, and while it was clear Francis was not trying to injure or deliberately hurt him, he was suspended for the very first time in his career, and what would be the only time, a very questionable call to say the least. He missed 2 games to end the month. In March, the Pens got hot again, and our hero continued to soar. 2 goals, 20 assists in 13 games. Yikes! and the 12-game point streak that began the month. It began with 3 assists over the Jets on the 5th, and then the next game, a goal and 2 assists over Ottawa. Oh my goodness, what is happening here? 6 points in 2 games again, and then in the game after that on March 9th, he reached 100 single-season points for the 3rd time in his career with 2 assists against the Devils. 2 games later on March 14th against the Boston Bruins with an assist, Ron set his career high, 102 single-season points, beating his previous mark of 101 during his last full year in Hartford in 1989-90, and there's still 14 games left. On March 24th, he had 4 assists against the Rangers. The very next game, 3 assists against the Blues. 7 points in 2 games. Truly amazing. Heading in the final 6 games of the season in April, Ron was still solid. 5 points in 6 games, including 2 goals against Ottawa. The Penguins finished 49, 29, and 4 in the new 82-game season for 102 points, first in their division and second overall in the Eastern Conference, just 1 point behind the Flyers. Either way, the Pens are heavily favored to reclaim the top, and all their top dogs are healthy and ready to go. And here we go again. For the 3rd straight year and the 5th time in 6 seasons, the Pens will face the Capitals in the playoffs. Many of the same players are still there, but now a young rising star on defense has joined them, Sergei Gonchar, giving them a big boost on the blue line. The Caps finished 39, 32, and 11 for 89 points. The league's best goaltender, Jim Carey, was the year's Vezina Trophy winner. He truly was smoking. And oh yeah, they have a new logo too. Game 1, the Igloo believes the Penguins' dynasty is definitely on its way. It's looking good as the Pens lead 2-1 after the first period and early in the second on the power play. Mario carries it in as Zubov takes control. Francis is where he needs to be. He shoots and scores. Dip my chips in strawberry syrup. The Pens then lead 4-1. It's easy cruising. No, they collapse completely and lose 6-4. Hey. Game 2, the Pens are hoping to overcome the upset in the first game. And just a few minutes into the game on the power play, Super Mario, Ronnie franchise, Peter, no nickname Nedved, for the goal. And 36 seconds later, the Pens take a 2-0 lead, and it stays that way after 1. The Caps come back to tie in the second, but then it's Ron to Jaromir to Peter. It's a goal. The Pens lead 3-2. It's 3-3 after 2, and the Pens fall apart again and lose 5-3. We're down 2-0 going to Washington. Oh, no. Anyway, Game 3, the Caps center's ready for another big upset like they had 2 years prior, and like they almost had last year, with the Pens remaining focused on, oh hey, power play, and it's the most dangerous scoring trio of the 95-96 season. Yager and Lemieux, 2-1 in scoring that year, respectively, to Ronnie! Goal. It opens the scoring, the Pens remain in control, and win 4-1. They are finally in this thing. Game 4, both teams are playing a tight-knit game. Our hero is laying in all the checks, but the Caps do lead 2-0 with the second period winding down, and the Pens are trying to kill a penalty, and our hero fighting for the puck, as he always does, and sends Jaromir in on goal, and he gets said goal. The Pens are in the game and tie it. In the third, we're going to overtime, and it settles nothing. Second overtime, nothing. Third overtime, nothing. Fourth overtime is winding down. It looks like we're under a minute to go here. We could be heading to our fifth overtime, but wait! Nedved ends the marathon. One of the longest games in NHL history, but it's worth it that the series is tight as 2, heading back to Pittsburgh. Game 5, the Igloo is rocking. Ron is playing like a warrior. The Pens win at 4-1 on the strength of Yager's 3-point night and Reagan's outstanding goaltending. Game 6, we're back in the Capitol. The Pens can take the series, and indeed the Pens are up 2-0 just over 6 minutes in, and 6:21 later, Tamer, Nedved, Ronnie, 3-0 Penguins. The Capitals make a comeback attempt, but Reagan stands firm in the third. The Pens win 3-2 and take this series in 6 games. Oh boy. Despite the scare of the first 2 games, the Pens got it together, and Ron played very well in the series. 3 goals, 3 helpers, 6 points in 6 games. The Pens' dominance came through despite trailing 2 games, and that OT marathon, oh boy, Ron was looking rock solid. Awaiting them in the second round, a familiar foe, the New York Rangers, who finished 41, 27, and 14 for 96 points, are just 2 years removed from a Stanley Cup win. These two haven't faced each other since that infamous 1992 series where Ron arguably played the best hockey of his entire career. The Rangers, like the Pens, were down 2-0 in their opening round series. Now theirs was against the Habs. They came back to win it in 6. Mark Messier is still leading the way, but now with him is former Oiler teammate and future Hall of Famer Jari Kurri, former Penguin Luc Robitaille, Ron's former Whalers teammate Pat Verbeek, Adam Graves, the man who injured Lemieux in '92, is still there, as the superstar Alexei Kovalev, Nicholas Sundstrom, And this defense was insane. Megastar Brian Leach leading the blue line core with Ron's longtime former teammate, Ulf Samuelson, 17-year veteran Kevin Lowe, Bruce Driver, and Marty McSorley, and a net all-star Mike Richter, and the man behind the bench, Colin Campbell. The Pens knew this was going to be a huge uphill challenge. And Game 1, the Igloo is heated as their heated rivals arrive. After a scoreless first period, oh boy, Triple P, Pens power play, meaning triple threat. Captain Ron, take hold of the wheel. Over to the magnificent one, to Jaromir. The Pens lead 1-0. The game went back and forth, 1-1, 2-1 Pens, 3-2 Rangers, 4-3 Pens. And that would be the final in a very exciting first game. Game 2, the Pens fans want to see more Rangers meetings, but it did not look good. The Pens trailed 3-0 in the second period, but you know it by now. Yeah, power play. Yeah, it's Ron. Oh, but this time he sees Zubov, and Lemieux is where he needs to be, as he always is. It's a goal. The Pens are on the board, but it matters very little. This game belongs to the Rangers. They win 6-3, and we're headed to New York with the series tied. Game 3, MSG is hostile and ready with a sarcastic chance of 1992. Yeah, it doesn't really have the same ring or significance. And boom! 2 from Lemieux, 1 from Sandstrom, 3-0 Pens after 1. The Rangers get 2 back in the second. It's 3-2 after 2, but Reggett is sensational. The Pens take a 2-1 series lead with a 3-2 win. Game 4, the Penguins lead 1-0 after 1 when Zubov sends Ronnie in and sets up Peter Nedved for a goal. 2-0 Penguins en route to a 4-1 win and a 3-1 series lead. The Rangers are against the wall. Oh, this is so good. Game 5, the Igloo is ready to send the Rangers backing, but in an unexpected turn of events for our hero early in the second period. Ron, who of course plays all ends of the ice, in an attempt to block a Rangers shot, Ron Francis appeared to injure his foot. It didn't look good. The Penguins, however, did win the game 7-3 and took the series in 5. In these playoffs, Ron was focusing a lot more on his defensive game, and Messier was heavily contained in this series thanks to our hero, who showed no fear as usual out there. But the prognosis of his injury was grim. Ron Francis had a broken foot. His season was over. A sad end for our hero in what has been a truly epic season. The Pens, however, still had to move forward, as they did make their first Eastern Conference final appearance since 1992, and awaiting them is the playoff Cinderella story, the Florida Panthers, in just their third season of existence. In their first playoff appearance, and were ready to do the impossible. They were 41-31-10 for 92 points. They downed the Bruins in 5, stunned the Flyers in 6. They were led by veteran character player Scott Mellanby, and won games due to their hard work ethic from forwards such as Rab Niedermeyer, Johan Garpenlov, Stu Barnes, Jody Hull, Tom Fitzgerald, Radek Dvorak, and one of the best defensive forwards in the game, Brian Skrudlin. Late in the season, they added former wing star forward Ray Shepard. On defense, they had Robert Svela, Gordon Murphy, Jason Woolley, Terry Kargner, and youngster Ed Jovanovski. But their whole team was built on the back of veteran goaltender John the Beezer Van Beesbrook, and we were under the guidance of Doug McLean behind the bench. The Pens had to surge forward without our hero. Game 1, the Panthers shot the Pens 5-1 at the Igloo, but the Penguins tied the series with a tight 3-2 win. In Miami for Games 3 and 4, they split those 2 games as well. The Panthers dominant in theirs, the Pens having to win another tight one to tie the series. Back at the Igloo for Game 5, the Pens took control of the series with a 3-0 shutout win. It looked like the Cinderella story was going to turn into a proverbial pumpkin for the Panthers. But the Panthers back home forced to Game 7, and all our hero could do was watch as his teammates fell to the Panthers in 7 games. Florida was off to the Stanley Cup. No doubt Ron was itching to get out there, and many pointed to his absence as one of the big reasons that Pittsburgh lost, but the team didn't make any excuses. The Panthers helped contain Mario at key moments, as well as Jágr and Nedved. They would go on to the Stanley Cup final, of course, but would be swept out by the Colorado Avalanche. Ron Francis had an incredible year, 27 goals, 92 assists. For a monster 119 points, these are career numbers for our hero. Ron, along with Lemieux, Jágr, and Nedved, combined for 528 points. Jágr was again the guy. One way or another, they collaborated for 68 goals. All but 51 of Ron's points that year involved Jágr. And again, Jágr assists on 16 to 27 of Ron's goals, all but 11. Wow. Ron had 31 assists. That's right, 31 assists to Jágr. That's literally a third, just above a third of all the assists he had that year of the 92. And Jágr scored 62 goals that year. That means Ron assisted on half. Oy. Also, Ron and Mario both each had 92 assists on the year, worked together to set up 22 goals collaborating, and in total worked together one way or another for 51. Ron did click well when he was working with the likes of Nedved as well as Thomas Sandstrom, and despite the loss of Larry Murphy, Sergei Zubov fit in nicely as his top defensive collaborator. And for the second straight year and in his first full season, Ron Francis led the league in assists, proving it was no fluke. He was tied with teammate Mario Lemieux for 92, the career high by far exceeding that of 76 from 93. The Pens' top three, the triple threat, 11, and look at this, 11 players on this list, all but one a Hall of Famer, Doug Wade, who you could actually make an argument for was the only one. And Ron Francis, for the second straight year, also finished in the top 10. Again, this is no fluke. And does so for this first full season. Career high 119 points, smashing his previous best of 101. Was good enough for fourth best in the NHL, just one behind Joe Sakic at third, who had 120, while teammates Jagr and Lemieux dominate the scoring race with the latter winning his fifth scoring title. Unbelievable. Again, all but one hero Hall of Famer, and I believe McGillney will likely get in one day. Ron was unable to repeat as Lady Byng Trophy winner. While he did register 40 votes, finishing 9th, some feel his suspension may have cost him a better chance this year. As for the Selke Trophy as the league's top defensive forward, Ron was a finalist, but was a runner-up to winner to Sergei Fedorov of the Wings, who did have a phenomenal year. Ron registered, however, a monster 255 votes. Fedorov, however, had 356, winning his second. Well, let's see. How did Ron do for the Hart Trophy? What? Really? Really? Are you f***ing kidding me? He didn't get one vote. You mean to tell me that he finished fourth in the league in scoring and didn't get one vote? Again, led the league in assists, didn't get one vote. 92 assists, yeah. And he's literally the only player in the top 10 in the league scoring who didn't register a vote. Anyway, despite that travesty and despite the season ending due to an unfortunate injury, Ron Francis in his 15th season had a superb season. 27 goals, 92 assists for 119 points, the latter two both career highs. He also finished a plus 25 and played his fourth NHL All-Star game and his first since 1990, giving him 5 selections in his career. He was close going back-to-back as a Selke Award winner and came in 9th in Byng voting. He was again shown support from his teammates, winning his third straight Players Player Award. Along with Jagr and Lemieux, as well as Peter Nedved, formed the most dangerous scoring core in the league that year, but yet the two megastars get the recognition. And to be fair, I probably care more than Ron does, but he wasn't the type of guy to really just hold on to that sort of stuff, it seemed. He seemed to be happy for his team and their accomplishments, but his lack of recognition in some ways just isn't right. For many years, Ron had gone unrecognized in many different ways and reasons. One being the fact in Hartford, he was the big fish in a small pond in a team that very few around the continent cared about other than where they were. Also, nowadays, he's getting overlooked because he's playing alongside two of the biggest stars in the NHL, Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. He also had been overlooked, and sometimes it was by choice, to represent Team Canada on the international stage for many, many years. However, he finally got his chance, it seemed, to represent Team Canada for the first time in 11 years. He was initially selected to play in the 1996 World Cup of Hockey. This is actually going to be the inaugural World Cup of Hockey, replacing the Canada Cup. Sadly, he never made the Canada Cup in any year he played, and he was not going to play in the World Cup of Hockey. Sadly, his lingering foot injuries and other reasons prevented him from playing. He had to decline the invite. Sad. But there was a lot of hope with the Penguins still, and they were still a devastating force. Ron was still at the top of his game going into his 16th season. He was only just 33 years old at this point. But they traded the highly skilled Sergei Zubov for veteran Kevin Hatcher, and on paper, it wasn't a terrible decision initially, but in the long run, this was not a good move for the Pens. Also, during last season, they were tired of waiting for Marcus Naslund to quote-unquote come around. They traded him for a guy who played 45 games in Pittsburgh. This was not a good move for the Pens. But this team still looks great. Let's see what our hero can do. The season didn't start all that well. Ron's numbers were still decent with 9 points in 10 games. That included a 2-goal game against Calgary on October 24th. They were off to a terrible start. The Penguins only won 2 games all month, and panic mode set in as the Pens made a deal to acquire veteran Peter Klima. The Pens were starting to find their groove again, and as was our hero. A great November with 4 goals and 14 assists for 18 points in 13 games. And in back-to-back games against Ottawa and Edmonton, a goal and 3 assists and a goal and 2 assists respectively for 7 points in 2 games. At the end of the month, he also had a 3-point night against Boston. The Pens were killing it at home, but on the road they struggled greatly. They were trying to make changes to what has been a puzzling season so far. They tried to add toughness by acquiring Darius Kasparidis, and tried to add depth with the addition of Stu Barnes and Jason Woolley from the Panthers. That one wasn't a bad move at all. In December, the Pens went on a tear, winning 11 games, looking like their old selves again. Ron had 16 points in 15 games, and had 6 2-point nights. The Penguins still look great in January. As did our hero, he averaging 1.5 points per game with 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points in 12 games and was a plus 12. Remarkable. 2 goals and a helper against the Lightning on the 4th, and another 3-point night with a goal and 2 helpers against the Isles about a week later, and 3 assists against the Montreal Canadiens near the end of the month. Be it fellow superstar Joe Sakic or defensive specialist center Mike Pekka, Ron Francis was up to the task to take on his fellow center still after all these years. However, a big moment for our hero came on January 15th as his former team, the Hartford Whalers, looked like they were going to be moving at the end of this season. And this would be Ron Francis' last game with the Whale Tank, and he would receive a tremendous standing ovation from the Hartford faithful. The fans have not forgotten his contributions to the club. In February, however, the Pens crumbled. Not only did Ron only have 7 points in 7 games, he was also a -7. Pittsburgh only won 4 games all month. Jaromir Jagr got hurt, and also 2 games into March after 4 seasons, Eddie Johnston was fired as head coach and GM Craig Patrick took over for the remainder of the season. Things didn't get much better in March. Ron only had 7 points in 12 games into the final 2 of a month, but he made them count. Actually, he had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points in a huge outing against the Habs. And the very next game, 2 goals and assists against the lowly Kings squad. 8 points in 2 games? Not bad at all. And after that, he had 2 points against the Panthers, bringing his total to 10 points in 3 games. Craig Patrick was scrambling to make changes, it seemed. He parted ways with veteran defenseman J.J. Daigneault, who definitely would come in handy come playoff time in exchange for Gary Valk. Okay. Thomas Sandstrom was traded to the Red Wings, and at the trade deadline, they gave up future 30-40 goal scorer Glenn Murray for washed-up Ad Olczyk. Okay. And they're also hoping Joseph Baranek would provide some depth. Anyway, in the final stretch of the season in April, Ron had 5 points in 6 games. Most of those came in a goal and 2 assist outing in the final game of the season against the Bruins, which the Pens actually lost 7-3 to complete a 3-game losing streak. Penguins finished 38, 36, and 8 for 84 points. Monster letdown, but still clinched the 7th seed in the East and would make the playoffs. And after 4 straight playoff exits to teams who had better records than, they were now facing a team who had a better record than they did, and that was the powerful Philadelphia Flyers, their most hated rivals. With a record of 45, 24, and 13 for 103 points in years of rebuilding, many thought it was the Flyers' time at long last. Thanks in large part to building the team around generational talent, Eric Lindros. Despite Lindros missing 30 games, the other 2 members of the Legion of Doom line were on point. John LeClaire scored 50 goals that year, and Michael Renberg was producing pretty well. They also had star forward Ron Brindamore, and hard-working forwards such as Trent Klatt, Sean Podine, and veteran checker Joe Otto. And the man, chosen first overall the year Ron was drafted, Dale Hawerchuk, the valedictorian of the class of 81, who has already at this point punched his ticket to the Hall of Fame, well, long ago actually, but is looking for that first Stanley Cup ring, which he had never gotten. On defense, they had all-star Eric Desjardins, rookie sensation Yanni Nienema, Chris Therien, veteran Peter Svoboda, and megastar and former teammate of Ron's, Paul Coffey. And in net, the awesome duo of Garth Snow, veteran Ron Hextall. The Flyers have it all, and Coach Terry Murray has brought it all together. The Pens are facing a huge uphill climb. Game 1 at the Core State Center in Philly. The Pens have nothing. The big guns are shut down, including our hero, and the Flyers take them apart 5-1. Game 2, the Penguins look a lot harder, and our hero is fearless against Lindros, but despite the fight, the Pens still lose 3-2 and now trail the series 2-0. Game 3, we shift to the Igloo, and it looks good early. Ron does his thing on the power play, and gets to Woolley, who gets to Jagr, who scores. Hey, 1-0 Pens. They lead 2-1 after 1, but then they'd fall apart. Ron plays an awful game the rest of the way, and the Flyers win at 5-3, and are now on the verge of sweeping the Penguins. Game 4, the Pens are determined to stay alive. Our hero plays a tight game, and again will not let up on Lindros despite the obstacle ahead, and the Pens actually walk away with a 4-1 win to stay alive. Game 5, we shift back to the city of brotherly love, and the game tied 1-1 in the first period. The triple threat strikes at last. Ronnie to Jaromir to Mario Magnificent. The Pens lead 2-1. However, 2 goals from Brindamore make it 3-2 Flyers after 1. But then veteran defenseman Frederick Olofsson, who they picked up early in the season from Anaheim, takes hold of the power play, gets it to Jagr, into Ron. He's where he should be and gets the goal. We're tied 3-3. Can the Pens do something here? But yeah, no, they ran out of steam, and the Flyers would win the game 6-3 and took the series in 5. Ron really didn't have much going for him here. 3 points in a series worse than abysmal -7. This is the worst he had played in a playoff series probably since his days in Hartford. In the end, the Flyers were just too damn good, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final until being swept by the Detroit Red Wings. Ron Francis had 27 goals and 63 assists for 90 points. Another excellent season. Once again, Jágr was the man present, as he assisted on nearly half of Ron goals with 13 helpers, and Ron returned the favor, assisting on 18 of 47 Jágr goals. Together, they teamed up to produce, 42 goals, while his top assist collaborator Mario Lemieux, who he teamed up with to set up 20 goals together, in total worked together to produce, as a whole, 47. Yikes. Also, despite Nedved's disappointing year, Ron worked pretty well being shifted with him, and also had some decent chemistry with Kevin Hatcher. For the 5th straight season, Ron is among the leaders in assists in the top 10. His 63 assists were tied for 3rd best in the league with the great Steve Yzerman, and only behind leaders Gretzky and Lemieux, who were tied first with 72. Almost seems fitting. A list again chock full of Hall of Famers, 9 out of 11. And for the 3rd straight season, Ron was in the top 10 in points. His 90 points was tied for 8th with Ziggy Palffy of the Islanders. You can see here that dead puck era was underway as Lemieux won the scoring title with 39 points less than he had last season, and only 2 players having over 100. Once again, Ron got himself quite a few votes for the Selke Trophy, but was not a finalist this year, coming in 8th place, still notching 72 votes. And he was actually closer to being a finalist for the Lady Byng Trophy this year, just falling 9 votes shy of Adam Oates, who came in 3rd in voting. Ron was still at the top of his game. This ever-changing game was continuing to evolve, or devolve, depending on who you ask. For the 5th straight year, is among the top 10 assist leader, and for the 3rd straight was in the top 10 in points. Despite the rough road the Penguins underwent this season, it wasn't quite curtains for the club. Ron still played a big part, and his importance was again highlighted. And now going forward, he was again going to be called upon to take command of the ship above all. Now entering his 17th NHL season and his 7th full season with the Pens and 8th overall, Ron was again named team captain as Mario Lemieux at the age of 31 announced his retirement from hockey. Ron knew the task at hand, but he proved in the past he could handle it and was ready to take it on once again. But after the Penguins' lackluster season the year prior, he knew it wasn't going to come easy. And despite the questionable moves by Craig Patrick, they still had a great team on paper. After all, Jaromir Jágr was still one of the biggest and best stars in the game. Tom Barrasso, despite having some health issues over the last few years, was healthy and ready to go. Martin Straka had returned to the team after stints in Ottawa, as well as the Island and Florida. They hung on to Stu Barnes. Former Pens All-Star from the late 80s Rob Brown comes back to the club. They are counting on Kevin Hatcher and Freddie Olofsson to lead a growing defense. And the new man behind the bench was Kevin Constantine, who had a great success coaching junior hockey and had some success in San Jose. Once again, Ron is overlooked for international play, and it isn't even given much consideration for the 1998 Canadian Olympic team, the first to feature NHL players. But our hero is the number 1 center in Pittsburgh again. Can he bring them back to prominence? Well, Ron started the season well, with 6 goals and 10 assists for 16 points in 14 games. That included a 3-point night against the Oilers. In November, he ran into a minor slump despite another 3-point game against the Canucks, this time to begin the month. And he ended the month strong with a 3-assist game and a win over the Habs. And the Penguins were looking pretty good. In December, the Penguins were still looking strong, as was our hero. He had a great December with 16 points in 13 games. It was a +5. He had a goal and 3 assists for 4 points against the Ducks on the 6th. And at the end of the month, notched his 11th career hat trick in a win over the New York Islanders. Ron continued to tear it up in January, right into the Olympic break in February, and also when the season recommenced. 20 points in 19 games, a monster +12 that included 2 goals and assists for 3 points against his, technically former team, the Carolina Hurricanes, better known at this point as the Hartford Whalers still, on January 12th. On February 25th, more success against the Habs, a 4-point night. The March of the Penguins, see what I did there, continued into the month of March as the team was looking like contenders again. Ron had a 4-point night against the Flyers, but our hero was on the verge of a huge milestone. Going into a March 21st, 1998 battle against the Philadelphia Flyers, only 6 players in NHL history have reached 1,000 career assists, 5 of whom Ron has played against. In the case of Paul Coffey, he's also played alongside. Ron entered the game with 999, and the fans in Pittsburgh, who Ron had captured the hearts of in his time there, were ready to see him make history. In the second period, Ron actually scored a goal to tie the game at 1-1, and the Flyers took a 2-1 lead, but then, on a two-man advantage, the crowd was cheering every time Ron got the puck during this game, as Stu Barnes had the puck and got it to Ron as the crowd stirred and cheered once again. They were waiting to see what he would do. He passed it back to a wide-open Freddie Olesen, who launched it from 40 feet out and past Ron Hextall. The igloo erupts. Ron Francis becomes just the 7th player in NHL history 1,000 career assists, and is the 3rd fastest to reach the mark in NHL history behind Wayne Gretzky and Paul Coffey. The quiet superstar was making some noise, and indeed some people barely noticed once again that he was even approaching this milestone. His momentum and that of the Penguins continued right to the end of the season, finishing 40, 24, and 18 for 98 points. First in their division, 2nd overall in the Eastern Conference, with Captain Ron in full command. Awaiting the Penguins were an underdog Montreal Canadiens team, who finished 7th in the East with a record of 37, 32, and 13 for 87 points. Ron hadn't faced the Habs since leaving Hartford in the playoffs, but things were obviously much different now. Montreal had a talented bunch, but they weren't the dominant team they used to be. Up front, they were led by Ron's former Penguins teammate Mark Recchi, as well as Captain Consistency Vincent Damphousse, gritty Shane Corson. That was a fantastic veteran core up front. They also had the likes of Martin Rachinski, Turner Stevenson, Benoit Brunet, Mark Bureau, Brian Savage, and third-year rising star Saku Koivu. A solid defense led by tough Dave Manson, as well as Vladimir Malakov, Igor Ulanov, Stefan Cantel, and longtime fan favorite Patrice Brisebois. And in net, you had 18-year veteran, a man who knows a thing or two about the playoffs, Andy Moog. And they had a rookie head coach named Alain Vignon. Game 1 at the Igloo, Barrasso and Moog showing aspiring goalies everywhere how it's done. It's tied 2-2 at the end of regulation, but Brunet scores late in the first overtime to give the Habs an upset win in Game 1. Oh boy. Game 2, our hero, however, takes control. He and Stu Barnes set up Olczyk for a power play marker in the first. The Pens draw first blood, and it's 1-1 after 1. However, the Pens are in full control down the line and lead 3-1 with time winding down. It's Freddie to Jaromir to Ronnie, notching the empty netter with 57 seconds left. The Pens win 4-1. This series is tie shifting to Montreal. Game 3, the Habs defense is a monster, and the Pens can't get much momentum going. And the Habs shock the Pens 3-1 and take a 2-1 series lead. Oh my goodness, this keeps happening. Game 4, the Penguins took a 1-0 lead early, and 124 later, power play, Ron Jaromir to Hatcher. He scores 2-0 Penguins. The Habs get the lead in half, but late in the frame, yep, that's power play. Stu is stirring with the puck, and Ron gets it, and here's Yager. It's a goal. 3-1 Penguins lead. They lead 4-1 after 1. Late in the game, it's 5-3. The Habs are pressing, but Stu to Ron to Yager. Empty netter with 12 seconds to play. The Pens had the series at 2 with a 6-3 win. Ronnie Franchise has 3 assists. A huge game at a crucial moment for our hero. Game 5, the Pens realize the Habs are putting up quite a good fight, but they are ready to take control. After a scoreless first, the Habs led 3-0 early in the third period. Oh boy. Straka finally got the Penguins on the board, and Ronnie cut the gap to 3-2, but the Habs ran away with it. A huge 5-2 loss. Now the Pens again facing elimination. Yep, Game 6, Molson Center. Pens had nothing. Ron had 4 shots on goal. Moog stopped all of them, plus the other 17 he faced that day. And the Habs win 3-0 and take the series in 6 games. Well, Ronnie played better here than he did in the opening round last season against the Flyers, and had a great performance in Game 4, and overall did what he could. But the depth that the Habs had in their lower line players actually proved to be a difference maker, as well as their underrated defense. The 6th straight playoff exit for the Penguins. 5 of them were to teams that were better than in the regular season, even quite significantly. Not good. And little did anyone know, and maybe it was a contributing factor, who knows, Ron had just played his last game as a Penguin. And it was another excellent season for our hero. 25 goals, 62 assists for 87 points in 81 games. And all but 23 of those points involved Jaromir Jagr. Jágr assists on 18 of Francis' goals, all but 7. In turn, Ron assists on 26 of Jágr's 35 goals. That's all but 9. And get this, they collaborated on 20 assists together. That is just remarkable. Ron also clicked with Stubarn as well as defensemen Hatcher and Olesen. And for the 6th straight season and the 10th time in his career, Ron Francis is among the top 10 leaders in league assists, finishing 4th with 62, as Jágr was tied with Gretzky for best of the league with 67. And for the 4th straight season, finishes among the top 10 in league scoring with 87 points, a 3-way tie for 5th with John LeClaire and Ziggy Palffy. Ron got a huge 96 votes for the Selke Trophy, but again missed out on being a finalist, finishing 4th in voting. And will you get some votes again for the Bing this year? Well, actually... Yes! Ronnie Franchise wins his 2nd Lady Bing Trophy for excellence in sportsmanship, beating out Teemu Selanne and the great Wayne Gretzky. What a huge achievement for our hero. Unbelievable. And hey, would you take a look at that? Years of being snubbed completely for the first time since the 1986-87 season. Ron Francis actually gets some votes for the Hart Trophy. He got 6 in total, being tied for 15th overall. Ron Francis' 7th full season and 8th in total in Pittsburgh was another winner. Again, winning the Lady Bing Trophy for excellence in sportsmanship, he's still among the top 10 scorers in the league, even in this dead puck era, was still contending for the Selke Trophy for his defensive play and was named team captain after Mario's retirement. He was an impressive plus 12, he won more team awards, he was named team MVP for a 2nd time, sharing the award with Jágr, was voted MVP by his teammates again for the 4th time. He also took home the Badger Bob Award for the 2nd time and actually won the Baz Bastian Good Guy Award for how well he conducted himself with the media. How about that? Above all, to reach 1,000 career assists. And life was good for Ron. And look at this. He's still playing at peak form at 35 years old and 17 seasons under his belt, no less. Which is why Pittsburgh fans were not happy whatsoever when they found out Craig Patrick wasn't making any significant moves to keep Ron in Pittsburgh as his contract had come up. Yeah, a few detractors said, he ain't Mario. Well, no kidding. Yet here's a man who helped their current megastar Jaromir Jágr develop his game all these years, and is still productive as he's ever been in his career, and he can lead a team. Oh yes, he's still among the top 10 scorers every year, and also among the leaders in assists every year, and he just won the damn Lady Bing Trophy again. He just finished just shy of being a 2nd team All-Star again. That didn't seem to matter to Craig Patrick, and despite having the respect of his teammates on top of that, Ron's days in Pittsburgh were over. It's now time for a new journey. In the summer of 1998, Ron Francis signed a 4-year deal worth just over $20 million, the richest contract of his career with the Carolina Hurricanes. Yes, big market teams wanted Ron on their team, but Ron chose to kind of go back to where it began, sort of. Well, yeah, the Hurricanes were the former Hartford Whalers, but even though their city had changed, a lot of things haven't. They were still an aimless club headed nowhere, and felt Ron could lift them past that. Well, they still saw his value as a hot commodity, and yeah, well, he's going back to being the big fish in a small pond. I mean, he thrived on it before, he can do it again. And speaking of that, Ron went from being a big fish in a small pond from a team that failed to build around him properly to a big fish in a much larger body of water, where he wasn't the top shark in the tank, but became a huge part of the team nonetheless, and got 2 Stanley Cup rings as a result. Who can forget his unforgettable play in that 92 Patrick Division final against the favorite Rangers when Lemieux and Mullen went down? A huge part of that 1993 team that was the best in the league that regular season and won 17 straight games, still a record. He aged like a fine wine, gray hairs and all, winning 2 Lady Bing trophies as well as the Selke Trophy, and was the NHL's plus-minus leader in the strike-shortened season in 1994-95. He led the league in assists back-to-back in 94-95 and 95-96, and 4 other times was in the top 10. He notched his 1,000th career point, his 1,000th career assist, played in his 4th NHL All-Star game, and won a plethora of team awards much like he did in Hartford. And to top it off, rather than get comfortable in a team stacked with talent, he made himself even better. He made himself the best he's ever been, and like he did in Hartford as well, helped those around him evolve their game and get the best out of them, and in turn, he can produce his best. He does not get enough credit for helping shape the growth of Jaromir Jagr. He was also key in Lemieux's final stretch from the mid to late 90s. Being the biggest star didn't matter, but being a great hockey player did. But in the end, there was something in common with his time in Hartford. Pittsburgh fans loved him every bit as much as he was loved in the city that began his NHL career. He would be sorely missed. Carolina Hurricanes feel he still has a lot to offer. I mean, look at the contract they gave him. Will he continue to stay on top of his game? We'll find out in the fourth and final part of our series on Ronnie Franchise. In the meantime, like and share the video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see ya!